She looked me up and down and smirked. You afford a dress for this wedding? Maybe try the thrift store. The boutique owner's voice dripped with mockery, and a few customers giggled behind their hands. My cheeks burned hot with shame. This wasn't just any wedding, it was my dad's, and I wanted to look beautiful, to feel like I belonged. Instead, I was being humiliated in front of strangers. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I walked out quietly, but inside, I made a promise. I would never feel small again. Next time I walked into that store, I owned it. When my dad sat me down in the living room, his smile was so wide it almost erased the nervous tremor in his voice. "Sweetheart," he said, "I have some exciting news. Linda and I are getting married." I forced a smile, because what else could I do? I wanted to be happy for him. He deserved happiness after years of being a single dad, but the thought of Linda officially becoming my stepmom made my stomach twist. She had always been polite, but there was an air about her, like she lived in a world of silk tablecloths and champagne flutes, and I was just a guest who didn't quite belong. She floated into the room right on cue, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "We're planning something very elegant," she said, almost to herself. "A perfect wedding, with perfect guests and, of course, perfect dresses." Her eyes drifted over me, landing on my jeans and faded hoodie. The smile on her lips was polite, but in her eyes I caught a flicker of judgment. I nodded silently, but my chest tightened. Perfect guests. Perfect dresses. Where did I fit into that picture? Over the next few weeks, wedding talk consumed every family conversation. Linda gushed about the venue, the catering, the floral arrangements that had to feel luxurious but not gaudy. I tried to be supportive, but every detail seemed like a subtle reminder that I didn't quite measure up to her curated version of perfection. One evening, she brought over a glossy binder filled with dresses for the bridal party and close family members. "Everyone needs to look cohesive," she said sweetly. Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, "We'll need to find something that works for you." The pause before her words wasn't long, but it was sharp enough to cut. I laughed it off, but that little comment stayed with me. For the first time, I wondered if she secretly wished I wouldn't even come. I wasn't glamorous, I wasn't wealthy, and I didn't live in her perfectly polished world. But I loved my dad, and if attending meant enduring her subtle digs and the unspoken message that I didn't belong, I'd do it. I just didn't know how much it would hurt first. The little bell over the door chimed as I stepped into the boutique, and immediately I felt out of place. The air smelled like roses and expensive perfume, and everything sparkled under soft golden lights. Racks of gowns floated like clouds along the walls, each one more elegant than the last. I tugged at the sleeve of my hoodie and tried to shake off the sudden self-consciousness that crept up my spine. A woman behind the counter glanced up. Her perfectly arched brows lifted ever so slightly, and then she exchanged a look with a younger employee beside her. "Can I help you?" she asked, drawing out the words as if unsure I belonged there. "Yes," I said, summoning some confidence. "I'm looking for a dress for my dad's wedding." Her eyes traveled from my sneakers to my messy bun, and then she smiled, tight and condescending. "Oh, well, our gowns start at $2,000. Just so you're aware." The younger employee giggled softly, covering her mouth, and whispered something I couldn't catch. I tried to ignore it, wandering over to a rack where a soft blush gown caught my eye. I had barely touched the fabric when the older woman swooped in. "Those are part of our premium collection. Perhaps you'd like to try the sale rack first." Heat rushed to my face, and before I could respond, the younger employee muttered under her breath, "Maybe she's in the wrong store." They both laughed quietly, but it was enough to make my throat tighten. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife, the door chimed again. I turned and froze. "Linda!" Her eyes lit up with surprise, and then mischief. "Oh, I didn't expect to see you here." Her gaze swept over my hoodie and sneakers, and she gave a little chuckle. "Sweetheart, these dresses are, well, they're very high-end. We wouldn't want to ruin the aesthetic of the wedding, would we? The employees laughed with her, like we were all in on the same joke, except I was the punchline. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the shiny white floor. My fingers curled into fists, nails digging into my palms. I was just leaving, I muttered, my voice cracking. I forced myself to walk to the door slowly, even though every instinct screamed at me to run. The bell chimed again as I stepped out into the cold air, my chest tight and eyes stinging. By the time I reached my car, tears blurred my vision. I slammed the door and let out a shaky breath, humiliation burning hotter than anger. I had never felt so small, so underestimated. They didn't just see a girl in a hoodie, they saw someone unworthy of their world. As I wiped my face, a quiet determination sparked in my chest. They wouldn't laugh forever. I sat on my bed that night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every cruel laugh and condescending glance from the boutique. It wasn't the first time I'd been underestimated. Growing up, people always assumed I'd fail. Teachers who said I wasn't ambitious enough, classmates who mocked my thrift store shoes, even Linda, who always treated me like a temporary guest in my own dad's life. But I had learned to let their voices fuel me instead of break me. What they didn't know was that I had quietly built a life they couldn't see. 2 years ago, I started a small online business selling custom stationery, and it had grown faster than I'd ever imagined. I'd reinvested my profits smartly, even dipped into real estate with a small rental property. I wasn't rich, but I was far from broke. The boutique owner had looked at my hoodie and sneakers and decided I couldn't possibly belong. She had no idea. Later that evening, I vented to my best friend, Kara, over the phone. I swear, they acted like I was trash that wandered in off the street, I said, pacing my room. I wanted to scream at them, but I just left. Kara was quiet for a moment, then her voice lit up with mischief. You know what would be the ultimate revenge? Buy the place. Own it. Make them work for you. I froze, half laughing. Yeah, right. But the idea lodged itself in my mind like a spark waiting to ignite. The next morning, I started digging. A little online sleuthing and a few calls later, I learned that the boutique wasn't as untouchable as it seemed. The owner had taken out loans for renovations, and recent local reviews hinted at declining service. They were vulnerable, ripe for a discreet purchase. As I stared at the numbers on my laptop, my heart pounded. I could actually do this. I could walk back into that store not as a humiliated girl, but as the owner. The thought of their smug smiles collapsing into shock sent a thrill through me. I didn't just want a dress anymore. I wanted justice, and this time I would write the ending. The next week was a blur of research, phone calls, and adrenaline. I reached out to a small business broker, explaining that I was interested in purchasing a bridal boutique in town. He didn't bat an eye. Apparently, people quietly buy and sell businesses all the time, but for me, it felt like stepping into a secret world of possibility. He arranged a discreet meeting with the owner, and I had to stop my hands from trembling as I walked into a sleek office space instead of the boutique itself. She didn't recognize me. Not a flicker of recognition crossed her face. I wore a tailored blazer and had my hair down, and apparently, that was enough to erase the broke girl in sneakers from her memory. She shook my hand and introduced herself like we'd never met. As we discussed the store's performance, she was careful with her words, but I could read between the lines. Sales had been dipping. Loan payments were stacking up. She wanted out, though her pride wouldn't let her say it outright. I nodded and smiled, hiding the little spark of vindication burning in my chest. The negotiation took a few days, and every moment felt like balancing on a tightrope between fear and exhilaration. I reviewed the financials late into the night, double-checking that I wasn't making a reckless choice. But the numbers worked. I had saved enough, and with a small business loan to bridge the gap, the deal was possible. More than possible, it was inevitable. Finally, we sat across from each other in the broker's office with a neat stack of papers between us. My heart hammered as I picked up the pen. The moment I signed, it was done. The boutique was mine. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to scream, but I kept my composure. She had no idea that the girl she'd humiliated in front of customers was now her replacement. I thanked her for the opportunity, shook her hand one last time, and walked out into the sunshine with the keys in my bag. That night, I spread the keys on my desk and stared at them, grinning. I imagined the looks on their faces, the employees who laughed at me, the stepmom who thought I'd ruin her aesthetic, when they saw me next. I wasn't just going to buy a dress. I was going to make a statement. The plan for the grand reveal took shape instantly. I'd walk back into that boutique, not as a customer, but as the new owner. No shouting, no gloating, just quiet, undeniable power. They wouldn't see it coming, and that was the sweetest part of all. 2 days after the sale was finalized, I pushed open the boutique door with a calm, confident smile. The bell chimed, and the familiar scent of roses and expensive perfume washed over me. This time, I didn't shrink under the golden lights or tug at my sleeves. I belonged here, more than anyone else in the room. The younger employee glanced up first, ready with the same dismissive look, until recognition flickered in her eyes. The older owner, well, former owner now, emerged from the back. Her face lit up with her usual fake customer smile, and then froze mid-expression as she saw me standing with a broker by my side. "Good morning," I said pleasantly. "I just wanted to introduce myself as your new boss." For a beat, silence, then confusion, then disbelief. The young employee's jaw dropped, and the former owner's face drained of color. What?" she stammered. I handed over the paperwork with a serene smile. "As of yesterday, this boutique is mine. Thank you for all your hard work." I didn't yell or gloat. I simply walked through the store with measured steps, letting the reality sink in. The employees who had giggled at me suddenly looked very small. I kept 2 of the staff members who had stayed quiet during my humiliation, but the others, especially the young one who whispered I was in the wrong store, were let go on the spot. With the boutique officially mine, I selected the perfect gown. A floor-length, soft champagne dress with delicate beading that shimmered under the light. I twirled once in front of the mirror, my reflection radiating confidence. The best part? The dress was free. It was mine, just like everything else in the store. When the wedding day arrived, I stepped out of the car feeling like royalty. Heads turned immediately. My gown caught the sunlight, every bead glinting like a quiet triumph. Guests whispered compliments as I made my way toward the venue. Then I saw her, Linda, standing near the entrance, adjusting her perfectly manicured hair. Her face froze as her eyes traveled over me, recognition dawning alongside disbelief. For the first time, she was speechless. Throughout the ceremony and reception, people complimented my dress endlessly. "Where did you get it?" they asked. I smiled politely and simply said, "It's from my boutique." The whispers that followed were delicious. By the end of the night, I wasn't just Dad's daughter in a beautiful gown. I was the woman no one would ever underestimate again. Life has a way of teaching lessons without a single argument. The woman who laughed at me for not being able to afford a dress now works for me, and my stepmom has no choice but to smile, knowing I turned her mockery into triumph. Walking into that wedding in a gown from my own boutique wasn't just about fashion, it was about reclaiming my dignity. Never let anyone define your worth. The best revenge isn't yelling, it's walking in so successful, they can't even look down on you anymore.